Thank you very much for your time this evening. My name is Turney. I'm the Executive Director of Kavango Resources. Kavango is a Botswana-focused exploration company. We've a long track record of working in Botswana. We have an extensive exploration team in country. We're involved in a number of different projects. But this evening, I'm going to take you through our flagship project, which is in the Kalahari Suture Zone, which is in the southwest of the country, and has the potential to become what we believe could be a major world-class new mining centre. So I'll just introduce, here's our disclaimer, which we have to leave up on screen for a moment. And I will just give you a quick introduction to the company. So we run a very tight ship. We're listed on the standard list of the London Stock Exchange. We're currently valued at £10 million. We have a cash balance of just over £1.7 million, having raised £2 million just at the end of last year. We run a very tight ship, as I mentioned. Our total PLC overhead is £350,000 a year, with our total board cost of about £150,000. Now that compares extremely favourably to a lot of our peers, because let's be honest, the minerals exploration business at the lower end of the market is racy, I think is the word we can euphemistically use. A lot of companies are out there selling pipe dreams. What we have to show you today is a project with really serious potential. Now, before I move on to the Kalahari Suture Zone, I'll just take you through some of our key numbers. We're predominantly a retail stock. Our share price is 3.5p. It's trading towards the top of the trading range at the moment. But as you'll see on this table just here, our board of directors, we hold 20.2% of the business. This is actual cash that we put into the company to fund its growth. And it really is a demonstration of quite how confident we are in the potential both of the Kalahari Suture Zone and our other projects that are in country. Now, in the KSZ, what we're looking at here is the magnetic map of the Kalahari Suture Zone. The KSZ is a 450-kilometre long north to south magnetic anomaly, which is based in the southwest of the country. Now, as you can see on the map here, it's on the western edge of the KAV craton. Now, the Kalahari Suture Zone was first discovered in about the 1970s by a Canadian aid program. So the Canadian government, they ran a series of programs in Botswana with a view to bringing Canadian mining companies into the country. They flew a series of regional airborne magnetic surveys over different parts of Botswana, because one of the notable features about the country is a lot of its geological features are underneath the Kalahari sands, or Kalahari cover as it's called, which is about 20 to 70 meters of loose sediments and sand. So the actual geology of the region is obscured from view. That obviously limited historic exploration back 100 or so years ago, when many of these types of magmatic sulfide systems were first discovered. Now, when the KSZ was first identified by these airborne surveys, the theory at the time was that this looked very similar to the Norilsk mining centre in northern Russia. We have a map here to show the position of Norilsk, and as you can see, Norilsk is on the western edge, again on a north-south axis of the Siberian craton. Now, when the Kalahari Suture Zone was first identified, it caused a lot of excitement at the time. The magnetic similarities between Norilsk and this area were clear to see to experts in the field. And it was felt at the time that this could be a similar magmatic sulfide system. Now, Norilsk is one of the most prolific mining centres in human history. Mining started there about 100 years ago, in about the early 1920s, and it's been continuous ever since. Even today, Norilsk accounts for about 20% of the world's copper production and 20% of the world's nickel production and 10% of the world's copper. And based on current output and what's currently known about the reserves at Norilsk, it's got at least another 100 years of life left in it, if not a lot longer. So the reason, obviously, that the KSZ, was particularly felt like it was such an exciting opportunity is because, obviously, to open up another region like this, the potential there is absolutely phenomenal. Now, Canadian firms then did move into the area, but limitations in technology at the time, specifically remote sensing technology and drill technology, meant that exploring this region in the 1980s and the 1990s was very, very difficult. A number of holes were drilled. Results of the core of these holes and the drill data was all kept by the Botswanan government, but no actual mineralization was discovered during those first programs. Now, our co-founder, Mike Moles, and co-founders, Mike Moles and Hilary Gumbo, they were looking to set up a new minerals exploration company about 8 years ago. They come across the idea that the KSZ could be a Norilsk lookalike, and they found the core samples in the big Botswanan government shed at a city called Kang, or a town called Kang in Botswana. They re-logged and sent this core samples off for assay testing. And what they felt was that the Canadians, although they didn't actually discover magmatic sulfide mineralization, what they were able to prove were a number of the signatures which were very similar to what was experienced and identified at Norilsk. So they felt that this region was highly prospective, and thanks to significant advances in modern exploration technology, this was a prime candidate to a frontier exploration to open up this potentially huge mining centre. So Kavango listed in 2018. Since then, the company has run a series of quite extensive exploration programs. We ran a regional airborne survey of our own in 2018 and 2019. We've used that data, and I'll show you quite how we've used that data in a moment. And we also drilled 4 holes in late 2019. We conducted extensive ground-based surveys. We've done a lot of work and gathered a lot of data to prove up the overall hypothesis that the KSZ is a Norilsk analogue. Now, on this map here, what you can see are our license areas. So our main exploration to date is focused in this northern region of the KSZ, which we call Hukunzi. We've also controlled the southern section of the KSZ. In total, we've got about 8,000 kilometres of licenses, and broadly speaking, the ground that's in between is in national parks. So from an exploration perspective, that's off limits. We're currently a £10 million market cap company, but to all intents and purposes, we have a controlling stake over this region. And given its potential, from our point of view, it presents us with a phenomenal opportunity as we enter the next phase of exploration. Now, last year, obviously, there was a lot of disruption as a result of COVID, but our exploration plan was to bring together all of the historic data that there was in the KSZ, combine it with our data, and build up a comprehensive view of the KSZ as a potential magmatic sulfide system. What I should have mentioned at the start of this is what we're looking for are major ore deposits of copper, nickel, and platinum group metals. We recruited a man called Dr. David Holwell, who's one of the world's leading authorities on magmatic sulfide systems, and he's completed for us a mineral systems review of the KSZ, and he's confirmed that 15 of the 16 characteristics that are shared by all of the world's major magmatic sulfide systems at Jinchuan in China, Voisey's Bay in Canada, the Thompson Nickel Belt in Canada, and of course Norilsk. The KSZ, with the data that we've been able to provide, we've shown that the conditions were right about 180 million years ago during the Karoo Age for the formation of magmatic sulfide deposits. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you here, this is a schematic of one of the Norilsk sills. In our announcements, when you read the information we put out in the public, we write about gabbroic sills. So in layman's terms, a gabbroic sill is effectively solidified magma. Now, what you can see here is one of the major Norilsk ore bodies, which is a copper PGM, so platinum group metal ore body, which is this red, quite thin but long, elongated, very concentrated, thin section of metal. Now, what's very interesting about the Norilsk formations is that when the magma passed through the system, it passed through coal-bearing shale. Now, this coal-bearing shale is very, very important because obviously coal contains sulfur. The sulfur mixed with the magmatic melt, which in turn interacted with the metallic elements within that magmatic melt. And it formed what's called magmatic sulfides. And the magmatic sulfides are an immiscible, quite dense, quite heavy liquid that sank to the bottom of the magma flows to form these extremely concentrated metal ore bodies that we're looking for today. Now, in terms of the formations, the Norilsk formations have these very distinctive, what we call keel and gull wing shapes. So you can see here, here's the keel of the sill, and to the left and right, you can see on the horizontal plane, the gull wing. So if you imagine the seagull spreading out its wings. Now, the Norilsk mining centre has obviously been studied extensively. It's been around for so long. It's been so incredibly prolific. So a lot is known about just the general makeup of Norilsk in a way that it wasn't known about the Kalahari Suture Zone. Now, when we did our our data exercise, our data gathering last year, we produced the world's first 3D underground model of the Kalahari Suture Zone. This map or this schematic that you're looking at here is a screenshot from our proprietary 3D model. And what this shows is a 30-kilometre wide cross-section, south-facing at Hukunsi, which shows the gabbroic intrusions that obviously represent the major exploration targets for us. And the first thing that you should note is that we have exactly the same Norilsk style keel and gull wing gabbroic sills. We've identified those. Now this is really exciting for us because with the work that we've done with the Mineral Systems Review, where we've confirmed that the environment was right about 180 million years ago for formation of these magmatic sulfides, the fact that we've now been able to prove using the magnetic data that we gathered, other magnetic data that had been gathered in previous airborne surveys, as well as drill data, both our own from regional boreholes and the programs from the Canadians, we've got a very, very comprehensive view of the KSZ and how it actually looks underneath the Kalahari cover. So what we're now looking for within these keels is we're now conducting what are called Tdem surveys. This stands for time domain electromagnetic surveys. And what these basically are is we have a subcontractor who we're working with at the moment who lays out a square kilometre large copper loop on the ground and pumps through that quite a powerful electric circuit. That circuit obviously charges the Earth's crust down to about a depth of 1,000 meters. And what we're looking for are high-speed conductors. So the current passes through the large loop into the ground, and the metallic bodies that we're looking for, by their very nature, they conduct electricity far faster than the surrounding bedrock. So what we're now looking for are these high-speed conductors that return this very distinct signal back to the receivers on surface. And we're looking for high-speed conductors within very specific areas within the 3D model that we've developed of the KSZ. Once we've identified some of those high-speed conductors, the goal then is to go out and drill. Now, I mentioned earlier the money that we've raised for the company. We're fully funded through our next exploration phase at the Kalahari Suture Zone. And what we have in mind is a drill program that we're planning to run later on this year, which to all intents and purposes will be a proof of concept drill campaign. Ideally, what we're looking for is to intercept magmatic sulfide mineralization either in the wall rock, so the breccia wall rock of the Norilsk style formations, or towards the bottom of these formations, which is where typically the largest accumulations of these magmatic sulfide deposits can gather. Now, this diagram here is a little bit misleading because it gives a sense of verticality. So the drill targets in the wall, they appear to be more vertical than actually they are in reality. Because if we go back to our map here, you can see that actually these are on a much shallower incline. Now, these are obviously shallower depths as well. So in the first instance, we're expecting that because we're in the proof of concept phase, we're going to focus our efforts on identifying any high-speed conductors that are broadly speaking in these sorts of areas. Now, to give you an idea of the scale of the opportunity, these two Norilsk style sills that you're looking at, one is 6 kilometers wide by 11 kilometers in depth. The other is 8 kilometers wide by 14 kilometers. So we really are dealing with huge ancient volcanic systems through which vast amounts of magma flowed about 180 million years ago. We're talking thousands of cubic kilometers, and that magma replenishment is very important because obviously as the magma passed through the coal-bearing rocks, which we've been able to prove existed in this region, Botswana is quite well known for its coal, that obviously has created what we believe is a perfect conditions for, or the ideal conditions for formation of magmatic sulfides. Now, at the moment, we're still at the proof of concept phase, but all of the circumstantial evidence that we've been able to gather, we've followed a very robust, a very rigorous scientific approach in building up our view of this region. But it's now up to us to go out and test this with the drill bit. We currently are conducting 6 of these Tdem surveys. We completed one at the end of January. The second is due for completion very soon, and then the remaining 4 we're hoping will be done this side of Easter. We will then pass that data over to Mira Geoscience, which is the subcontractor that we use, the specialist agency who helps us interpret this data. And our aim is then to identify high-profile drill targets for us to move into to drilling later on this year. So I'm conscious that time is running out and we have questions that are ready to be asked. So shall I hand back to you?
Can open cast mining be carried out at this location?
Probably not, because what we can see on this diagram here is we've got an illustration of the Kalahari cover. So I mentioned in the presentation, it's about 20 to 70 meters deep. In reality, the chances of this becoming an open cast mine is very slim. However, the nature of these sort of ore bodies that we're after, because they are so large and they are so concentrated, they're potentially huge economic deposits. So they really lend themselves to underground mining. But realistically, no, this wouldn't be an open cast operation.
On a slide, you had the northern section to be done by the end of summer for the exploration. How big an area is that?
So the northern section itself, these prospecting licenses up here, it's about 4,000 square kilometres. So that's obviously a very large area, but what's most important is actually the target areas that we focused in on. We've narrowed down within that 4,000 square kilometres down to about 190 square kilometres, which comprise our 4 main target areas.
And because the whole overall area of the KSV there it's huge, isn't it? And it's very difficult from the out to narrow those things down, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. So this is thanks to the work we've done both with the airborne surveys we've flown, with drilling that we've done, with the map that we've built. The underground 3D model map is extensive because it covers the entire region. We interrogated sort of tens of thousands of data points fed into this. It was a really extensive piece of work that we completed last year. The reason that we obviously have tied up the prospecting licenses that we have is because we, to all intents and purposes, have a strategic hold over this region. And if we're right, if this is a magmatic sulfide system with economic magmatic sulfide deposits, then obviously we're in a fantastic position then to take this project forward.
Question: how deep is the bottom of the gull wings?
So the gull wings are not so deep because these are actually quite shallow and they're also quite thin. They're quite interesting because they return very sort of important data about the overall viability of the system. But the keels, they're anywhere from about 500 to 800 meters. So what we're looking at here, this target on the left is about 550 meters to the bottom. So that's to the bottom of the keel. This one is down to about 750 meters at the bottom. But again, just to remind you, I mentioned in the presentation, we're also focusing our efforts and our energies on the inclines of the keels because they have much shallower targets. Those targets are around about 350 to 450 meters.
And that was the next question I had. Was are you going to be focusing solely on shallower depths for that initial drilling, or are you going to have any deeper drills too?
We're probably going to do both. So we're in a very fortunate position. We're very well funded. I think we'll focus our main efforts in terms of looking for mineralization in the shallower targets, but we're thinking at the moment about actually drilling holes to the bottom of each of these keels, take us right down to the very bottom, because there are 2 things that we can then do with that. First of all, whatever data we can gather from the drill cores, that will teach us a lot more about the overall system itself. No one has ever been to the bottom of any of these gabbroic intrusions with the drill bit. The deepest that's ever been drilled is only 450 meters. So to get to the bottom of one of these, there's a lot that we'll learn about sort of the overall validity of our exploration hypothesis. But also what we'll be able to do with the deeper holes is we'll be able to run, so the Tdem surveys that we're currently running from surface at the moment, we'd be able to run the equivalent of those surveys from downhole, where obviously we won't have as much interference from surrounding bedrock because we'll be much more in line with potential targets. So we're looking at both options at the moment, but we're going to be guided by the results of the surveys that we're currently conducting at the moment.
Okay. A question: if you're successful in discovering large deposits, would you need a mining partner? And I guess my take on that would be how far would you see your involvement in this project? Or project?
It's an excellent question because realistically, this project is huge. If it meets our expectations and we are able to prove the concept this year, so our focus in the KSZ is all about proving the concept. We need to demonstrate that there are magmatic sulfides within this system. You're talking about drill campaigns that could run to sort of hundreds of holes. So this is a project for a major mining firm to take over, a major JV partner.
And so you'd look, I guess, a sale at that point, or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, if we just go back to this slide, this is one of the great things about our strategic hold over the region. We've got all manner of options that are open to us. It could be a sale, it could be a JV partnership, it could be multiple JV partnerships. We control the entire region from a commercial point of view, so we've got full optionality. I think we certainly would want to retain, interest in the project, because just the initial proof of concept, that isn't actually a major minerals discovery. And if we look at what happened at Norilsk, they are still uncovering new deposits today. So, the upside potential here is absolutely enormous. But again, it would all come down to what sort of offer we're made.
And I had a question to ask, to kind of go over the timelines again. Could you give us, I guess, the rest of 2021, and if you can say anything into 2022, but the rest of this year, what's the kind of the timetable for you?
So the next 6 to 8 weeks is going to be dominated by completing the Tdem surveys of our 4 target areas. It will then be a question of how long it takes to interpret and analyse the data and what the results from those surveys tell us. Now, I mean, obviously, this is ongoing work. It's too early for us to speculate on. We're very encouraged by what we've seen so far. But what we're really looking for are high priority drill targets. We've got a drill contractor who we've already lined up. We believe we could mobilise into the field within 3 weeks. We've already set up the base camps at both Hukunsi and in the southern section of the KSZ. So we really are ready to pull the trigger on this thing as soon as we've identified drill targets. It will then be a case of drilling. We're expecting to drill, we think, around about 8 to 10,000 metres. We might do more. Again, it depends on what the surveys come back and tell us. But just to remind everybody, the goal here for this year is all about proof of concept. We need to take all of the circumstantial evidence that we've built up. We followed a very robust scientific approach, but we need to go and test this with the drill bit. We need to get drill cores from the bottom of these kilns if we can, and also from the hopefully magmatic sulfide intercepts, and then provide that to potential JV partners.
And the question we always get is the COVID question. Are you able to complete that program as outlined in the current COVID environment?
So obviously we have to be sort of careful what predictions we make here, but one of the things about Botswana is it's a huge country. It's larger than France. It's got a population of about 2 million people. 95% of that population is actually focused in the southeast of the country. We're obviously based over in the west. It's the Kalahari Desert, so there's hardly any population out there. So that actually does give us, that gives us a degree of confidence that COVID shouldn't be too disruptive to our field operations. So far, it hasn't been, with everything that we've done over the last year.
Lovely. Well, I think we've got one final question coming in.
Sure.
Will you release results of each of the 4 current surveys, or wait till the end of the 4? So one step by step, or wait till you get all of them?
We'll probably release step by step. We're following, sort of quite a thorough approach with this, but the data that we're already receiving, we're pretty confident in what we're seeing so far, and we think it's important that we update the market as we go along. Obviously, the nature of this data is it's price sensitive. Because of the model that we have, we know what we're looking for, but much more importantly than that, we know exactly where we're looking for it. So it'll be possible for us to release as and when we have results.
Lovely. Right, Ben, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for giving us a presentation this evening. I really appreciate you coming and joining us.